Hello and welcome to another episode of Angel Insights, the show that goes deep into the world of early stage investing. I'm your host, Tom Britton, co-founder of SyndicateRoom, and on today's episode, I'm delighted to be joined by Days Brewing co-founder Mike Gammell. Days is an Access EIS portfolio company, so this is an extra special episode. Mike, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
For sure.
And of course, thank you for sending me some samples of your latest lager, which I know we are going to talk about and enjoy later on. But to kick it off, could you tell me a bit of the background on your company and kind of where the idea came from? And then we'll talk about how it's developed and where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me on. Excited to chat through the story and also share a beer with you. So Days always starts with me and my business partner and my buddy Duncan. So we grew up together in Scotland. We grew up together in Edinburgh and played a lot of sport with each other, played a lot of sport against each other, and have known each other for a long, long time. Duncan's background in the last 10 to 15 years, he has been building challenger brands here in the UK in the food and beverage space. Initially at a business called Genius Gluten Free, which was one of the first brands to look at the gluten-free bakery aisle in that space and realize there was an opportunity to build a great product, but wrap it in a really good brand that spoke to wellness consumers who didn't have to avoid gluten for medicinal reasons, but might want to avoid gluten for health lifestyle reasons. So he joined that business, employee number 8. They scaled it all over the UK. He moved to Amsterdam, launched it in Europe, and then he moved to Austin, Texas, and launched it in the US. And then after Genius, Duncan joined a brand, which you might know called Propercorn. So the yellow popcorn bags that you might see in groceries. Yeah, great product, right? And Duncan was head of international sales there. And again, there, they were looking at a huge category. So snacking and creating a product and a brand that spoke to a modern, health-conscious consumer. And Duncan did a great job there, and it very quickly became the fastest-growing healthy snack brand in Europe. Why I mention that is when I approached Duncan for the opportunity for alcohol-free beer, although initially he might have been like, alcohol-free beer, nobody drinks that, which is what all of our friends told us at the time. When he took a step back, he realized that what we're trying to do here at Days is take on a huge category, beer, by creating a brand and a product that speaks to a modern, health-conscious consumer, which is exactly what he's done twice before at Genius and then at Propercorn. My background, I used to work in finance. When I first moved to London, I hated it. I was rubbish at it. And then I went to business school and got an MBA. And whilst I was at business school, I was the person telling everyone I wanted to join a startup. I wanted to join like a really small organization or start something myself. And I actually ended up joining a company called AB InBev, who are the world's biggest beer company. So
Instead of a startup.
Yeah,
giant conglomerate.
all of my friends told me I was a total sellout for joining a huge giant conglomerate. But I had an amazing experience at AB InBev. I never worked in consumer before. I've loved beer and I've always loved brands, and the opportunity to go to AB InBev and work with some of those fantastic brands and really like learn so much about the beer business was an awesome opportunity for me. So I moved out to Belgium and lived in Leuven for a while, which is where their global headquarters are, which is where Stella Artois is brewed. So right there at the Stella Brewery. And I spent some time working on the Corona marketing team, which was an amazing opportunity for me to learn about kind of brand strategy, brand communications, and how you really build like a beer brand from a top-down level. And I think Corona is a fantastic brand. And then latterly at AB InBev, I was in a business unit they had called ZX Ventures, which was their craft, innovation, and kind of venture capital arm, which is where whenever AB InBev acquired something new, be it a new technology, new brand, new platform, they would house it within ZX Ventures. The thinking being that AB InBev were very good at big beer, Budweiser, Corona, Stella, scale, but to look up to these small, more innovative products or platforms, it had to be housed within a different unit, which was ZX Ventures. So whilst I was at ZX, I sat on the leadership team there for craft beer and specialties. And we acquired a brand called Camden, which you might know, which is a great London brewery. Yeah, exactly. So we acquired Camden Town Brewery and it housed it within ZX Ventures. But I was specifically looking at adjacent product lines for the business. So whilst I was there, we bought an energy drink in the US, which we launched in the UK. We bought a canned wine business in the US that we launched in the UK. I spent a lot of time trying to put cocktails on tap in the UK. So think like draft espresso martinis. I was actually chatting to Rob, another one of your portfolio companies about.
Rob from Moth,
yeah, I was chatting to him about cocktails on tap recently. But so I was looking at everything new and different for AB InBev. AB InBev beer company. I was trying to help them think about becoming a total beverage company by looking at adjacent products and opportunities for the business. And really that's where I got interested in the opportunity for alcohol-free beer. I think like, yes, on one hand, we could see all the market research reports showing that younger consumers were drinking less alcohol and showing that there was a huge opportunity for non-alcoholic beer. But really, I felt this first and foremost as a consumer myself, someone who loves beer, that ritual, that connection, that occasion that only a cold beer can bring, but realized that I was moving away from that occasion because alcohol was no longer so relevant in my life all of the time. So Duncan and I had this very conversation around, isn't it sad that we're not going for a beer after football on a Monday night, or not enjoying a beer on a Wednesday because...
You mean you didn't want to go have a cup of tea after
Yeah,
football?
that's it. Exactly. And when we looked at it, we thought, we're not going for a beer because we don't want to catch up with our buddy and we don't want this like amazing tasting product. We're not going for that occasion because we don't want the alcohol, because we want to wake up tomorrow morning and work out, feel fresh, whatever it might be. And that's when we took a step back and thought, wow, wouldn't it be an amazing opportunity if we could try and create something that celebrated everything great about beer, which is ritual, connection, moment, that sociability, and taste, of course, but divorce it slightly from alcohol and say you don't need to have alcohol in your beer all of the time, which is what got us excited for the opportunity to create Days. And here we are, we're 4 years into the journey now. We left our jobs, or we quit our jobs in January 2020.
Good timing.
Yeah, which is obviously an interesting time, right? And not only did we have all of our friends and everyone saying, what the hell are you guys doing? Nobody drinks alcohol-free beer. But very quickly, the world changed, right? And we certainly had what I always think is like a pivotal moment in kind of February, must have been February 2020. The day Boris Johnson put the country into lockdown was also the day that Duncan and I had agreed with our then brewing partner in Scotland that we were going to work with them on testing and iterating and trying to create products, basically. We went to lots of breweries across the UK and across Europe with a brief to say we wanted to create a light, refreshing 0.0% beer, and we're looking for partners who could help us. And we found an amazing production partner in Scotland, but the day that we signed off to work with them was the day that Boris Johnson got on the TV and put the country into lockdown. And I'll always remember Duncan and I had a phone call at the time where we were saying, like, this doesn't feel like a great time to be starting a beer business. Like, we don't know what the world's going to look like, but we were so enthusiastic about the opportunity, and we kind of spent some time doing some like taste testing, product testing, focus groups, that we really believed that there would be an opportunity for alcohol-free beer. And it was kind of one of those moments where we were like, look, if we're going to do this, we've got to do this. So we got on the last flight out of London up to Edinburgh. There's a photo of it's just me and Dunks on the EasyJet plane. Yeah, I'll WhatsApp you a picture of the photo. It's just me and Dunks. We turned up at the brewery and said, like, look, we know you've lost a lot of demand overnight. None of us know what this world is going to look like, but we believe in this opportunity and we're here. We want to work with you. So we went up for 2 weeks, spent 9 months up there in Scotland, testing every different way of making an alcohol-free beer. And then at the end of that, got to the point where we launched at the end of 2020 with our lager and our pale ale. And I always say, if it hadn't been for that moment where we just got on that plane, like, there's no way this business would be where it is right now.
What a decision, by the way. Like,
yeah,
everything's shutting down, but so much faith in it that you're going to go ahead with it and sign a contract. Amazing.
Exactly. And I think looking back, like that decision or that moment was pivotal for the business. First and foremost, everything that happened through COVID, what it gave us was time, because until that point, so that was February 2020, it must have been, we were like, right, we're launching by May. We need to be launched by the summer. We're going to go. Whereas because we didn't know what the world was going to look like, we actually took a step back and said, we don't know when we're going to launch because we don't know what the world's going to look like. We're just going to spend as long as it takes to make great tasting products. So we went from having a rush to launch in May to actually we waited until autumn until we had like the product right. And then it was also quite an interesting period, like building the brand and the route to market strategy in that kind of like post-COVID world, and informed a lot about like the brand and a lot about how we want Days to be all about celebrating and making the most of your time. Because we were quite conscious that coming out of COVID, people would be wanting to experience more, do more, and be making the most of it and be much more health conscious than before, which certainly stayed true.
Played into what you wanted to do, in effect.
Yeah, I think so. And look, during COVID, I think everyone during those first couple of weeks was having a party and was reaching for alcohol. But we definitely saw like that after that, I think a lot of people were sat around being like, not feeling so great here. And actually, what I don't miss is being hungover at home. What I do miss is seeing my friends, climbing that hill, going for a run, just being out there, making the most of your time. And no question that post-COVID health is such a huge motivator for consumers that it's had a really good impact on the non-alcoholic beer space. So yeah, that was kind of what got us into it and why we set it up in the very early days. And I guess just to talk you through what we've been up to over the last 4 years, we launched.
Sure. Before though,
Yeah,
I want to ask you one quick
yeah,
question. You're on a plane.
yeah,
You're by yourself, just the two of you.
yeah.
You're going to start a non-alcoholic brand. What did you order on EasyJet flight? Did you get a beer?
I think we probably had a few beers. I think we probably had a few beers because I think we were like, what on earth are we doing? And you got to remember, like at the time as well, non-alcoholic beer now, and this is the amazing thing about this market, non-alcoholic beer now is this thing that is very much like part of the zeitgeist. It's normal. People are doing it, and people are more and more proud to be associated with it. Back then, non-alcoholic beer was like niche and this really boring product that often consumers would hide themselves drinking it. Like we'd see people go to a pub, order a Heineken 0.0, put it in a glass and hide the bottle because they don't want to be associated with it. So there were a lot of doubts about the category. But yeah, we were on an EasyJet flight, probably with like a pretty bad cheese and ham sandwich or something like that, and drinking a few beers.
Yeah. So, I mean, tell me though about the market. Obviously, like you said, when you started, it wasn't massive, but from
Yeah.
my understanding, it's now the fastest growing category in the drinks market.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure no and low will be the fastest growing category in beverage. What excites
Yeah.
us kind of within that is within no and low, non-alcoholic beer is the fastest growing category within no low, and non-alcoholic beer is certainly the fastest growing category within beer. And that's always to my earlier point around like taking on a big category. That's always what excites us is I think when we started working on it, non-alcoholic beer was probably 1% of total beer sales in the UK. It's now 2% of total beer sales in the UK. So that 2% can sound quite small. Beer is massive. Beer is such a huge category that just by like doubling its share of total beer is a lot of growth over the last couple of years. And we're really excited about the future, about the next steps. If we can get that 2% of total beer to 10% of total beer here in the UK, that's a phenomenal amount of growth to go after. What gives us confidence to do that is two things. First and foremost, looking at other categories or non-alcoholic beer categories in Europe. So in Spain, Germany, and France, non-alcoholic beer is already close to 10%, if not more, of the total beer category. So it's already a huge chunk of that category. But then also when you just look at consumer adoption and look at kind of consumption habits, consumers are looking to lead healthier lifestyle and more are looking to drink less alcohol. We've got some data. We've recently partnered with a huge pub group in the UK, and we've got some great data, which shows us that now 1/3 of all pub and bar visits in the UK are alcohol free. So people are going out, they're socializing, they're in a pub or bar, but they're no longer drinking alcohol at the same rate as they were before. So those are the kind of data points that gives us a lot of confidence about the category going forward. We just need to make sure that we're playing a really important role in that category by offering premium products and helping to bring in new modern consumers to the space.
On that though, I think I saw a stat that you are the fastest growing brand in the UK in the low and no space. Is that true?
In UK retail, we were the fastest growing brand in 2024, and I'm sure probably still will be. So we're shooting this in May 2025. I'm sure we will still be the fastest growing no low beer brand in UK retail.
Fantastic. And as you highlighted in the rest of Europe, the figure is not 2%, it's about 10%.
Correct.
So clearly you're growing quickly in the UK market. Have you got your sights set on European expansion, global expansion?
Our ambition is to build the world's next great beer business. So we certainly have global ambitions for this business. One of the challenges of being like a founder, we're only 4 years into this, it's still so early. We've got to be so focused. And one of the risks is getting distracted by looking at lots of different markets and certainly international territories. We're very focused on getting the UK right now. So for context, in the last 18 months, we've launched in Tesco, Sainsbury's, Waitrose, Ocado, and now the UK's biggest pub group, Stonegate. We have a lot of work just to get that right and nail that. And we're firm believers that if we get our domestic market right, then that will have a halo effect, and that will enable us to look into different markets within Europe or potentially the US. But we want a really strong domestic market before we try and go too broad too quickly. What I would say though is we did launch in the Middle East last summer in Dubai. So
That's an interesting move.
yeah. So for context, the Middle East is a really interesting non-alcoholic beer market and actually has one of the largest non-alcoholic beer markets in the world, it also has like a rapidly developing like younger population who are looking for non-alcoholic products. So we launched in Dubai, but Saudi is a fascinating space at the moment. Our product, because all of our beers are 0.0% ABV, we have an ability to operate in that region that some of our independent competitors, so a Brewdog as an example, their non-alcoholic beer has 0.5% ABV, so they're not able to operate as an alcohol-free product in the Middle East. So when we looked at where we would go internationally, whilst we don't want to get too distracted, the Middle East presents big market, growing very, very quickly. But we also have quite unique winnability in that market, which is why we chose that as our first international market. So we piloted in Dubai last summer, and we're now in a load of different retailers and bars in Dubai, and starting to look at like what further expansion in the Middle East might look like.
Quite interesting when they're with Brewdog going down the very low as opposed to the non.
Yeah.
If you can get it down that low, why would you not just go all the way to zero?
Yeah, and that's my question, to be honest, with like a low, so a 0.5% ABV, why wouldn't you go to 0.0? I think it comes down to production capabilities and an ability to do it, basically. We know it's much harder to make a great tasting 0.0%. It's easier to make it at 0.5% ABV just due to technology. But for us, from day one, it was always non-negotiable that we would be 0.0. We felt that consumers who are drinking alcohol-free beer are interested in like reading labels, seeing back of pack. Numbers matter, right? Like 0 calories is very different to 50 calories. 0.0% ABV is very different to 0.5% ABV. So our attitude has always been we want to be 0.0 just to make it so clear to the consumer, just to make it as accessible as possible. We wouldn't want a consumer to be looking for an alcohol-free beer and thinking, oh, well, it still has a little bit of alcohol, which a 0.5% does, and then move away from it. We want to bring everyone to this category and just make it such a simple, obvious choice to make.
On that, you sent me some beers.
Yeah, should we
And
do
I've
it?
been staring at this thinking,
Yeah,
interesting. It's quite the design
Yeah.
is quite fresh. I wouldn't call it necessarily a beer design can.
Yep.
It's more like a carbonated water can, or
Interesting.
there's
Yeah,
I was trying to think of what the marketing angle on
Yep.
this is, because clearly it's not like your typical. Well, it's not a bottle for one, but when I think of beer cans, I think of things that are quite dark with heavy design on it,
yeah,
lots of writing, and this has just got that light days longer on it. Yeah, and the colors are nice and soft. Talk me through the branding, because in such a crowded market, you've got to really create a brand that stands out and resonates with people. So what's the thinking behind it?
for sure. And you're right. It is a crowded market. What we've always wanted Days to be about is just making alcohol-free beer and the option to choose to drink a little less alcohol as accessible and clean as possible. So you're right. And I still drink alcohol. I'm a craft beer fan. I drink plenty of craft beers that have like meticulous designs on them and look a bit like dark and stuff like that. And they're super liquids. But with Days, we just wanted to make it like so clean, refreshing, and simple, which is why the branding is very clean, crisp. That is similar with like our flavor profile, which is super like refreshing and sessionable. We still want it to be a beer. So there are certain codes in the packaging that we've kept. And you mentioned you've got a can there. We do have 330 ml brown bottles, and we actually launched in bottle first of all. And that's like a really clear beer code. And there's a number of beer codes in the packaging. But yeah, we've definitely taken cues from soft drinks or those like flavored sparkling waters you mentioned, just to like bring in that like sessionability. And so that's in terms of like the packaging. We wanted to make it really, really accessible. In terms of the brand and the tone of voice and everything we're doing, it's kind of, we took this interesting insight early on. I mentioned to you how Duncan and I would go and sit in bars and watch people drink alcohol-free beer. And we watched so many people order it and like cover it or pour it in a glass straight away so that they weren't associated with it, because you always face that question like, oh, why are you not drinking? Are you not fun? What we wanted to create with Days is something that like, it's a beer. I'm in this bar. I'm watching the football. I'm having a laugh with my friends. I'm having a round. So all of that like great thing about beer, but it's like a signifier of like, guess what? Tomorrow morning, I'm waking up, I'm running 10K, I'm working my startup, whatever it might be. And leaning into like actually celebrating the positive reasons for drinking less alcohol, which I believe as a marketeer is a huge advantage we have over the big mega brewing businesses, one of whom I used to work for, who whilst they might have an alcohol-free version of their alcoholic product, are fundamentally alcohol companies and aren't going to communicate to their consumers the benefits of drinking less alcohol. Whereas we're very open with our consumers through our communication saying, drinking less alcohol is better for your physical health and your mental health. And we've ran lots of campaigns in that fitness, active lifestyle space, but we've also ran campaigns where we've told consumers drinking less alcohol is better for your sexual health by offering everyone in the UK better sex and their money back during Valentine's Day. And kind of just opening up a new conversation about the role of alcohol. We're not demonizing alcohol, and I still drink alcohol. 90% of our consumers still drink alcohol, but all of them to a person is trying to drink less alcohol to embrace the health and lifestyle, those health and lifestyle benefits.
And I guess that's why you've got this beer for doing.
Beer for doing.
Beer for doing.
Exactly.
And today we are beer for doing a podcast.
Exactly. But we're beer for doing a podcast at lunchtime, and we can have a beer at lunchtime and do this.
Exactly. So I'm going to take the can out and I'm going to open it up.
Right.
This is the first time I'm trying
This is the first time you tried any of our beers or just this specific new beer?
Any of your beers, actually. Okay. I should have tried it before because you've been in the portfolio a while.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm delighted. So cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's nice. It is light, but it's not water.
No.
You often think that non-alcohol, no alcohol, you're like, oh, it's just gonna be flavored water, but this has got a nice crisp. It does taste. I'm gonna take a second sip here.
Have a few sips.
It is nice, and I could almost imagine this would go well. On its own, it's good, but you can add a lemon to it, or you could add something else to it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's a very clean, crisp lager.
It is.
So what we specifically done, this is a Helles style lager. So with this beer, we actually start with a full strength Helles beer. We use Hallertau hops from Bavaria, and we actually use a yeast called Weinstein yeast from the world's oldest brewery to give a really clean, crisp Helles style beer that we then use a reverse osmosis process to take out all of the alcohol very gently, which allows us to maintain a lot of the flavor. With this, we want to create something that gives you that on your kind of tongue, that lager feel, but also encourages you to drink more of them. Because for beer for us is always about multiple, it's rounds, it's sessions.
I have taken a few sips while you've been talking.
Good.
And I did chill it beforehand, and it's lovely because it is a warm day.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? One of the things we speak about a lot here is bringing new consumers, particularly modern consumers, to the alcohol-free beer category. But we also speak about new occasions for alcohol-free beer, and lunchtime is a perfect occasion for an alcohol-free beer. You and I having one right now, we get this amazing beer moment and ritual and cheers that we wouldn't do if this was a soft drink or a tea or something like that. But we can also go back and work whatever it is we want this afternoon. And we've had some success encouraging consumers to trade up from a water or a soft drink to a beer in new occasions throughout the day.
No, definitely I could see that. I shouldn't admit it, but I think it was maybe my second or third week working at, I'll say the company, the train line.
Yeah.
They go out to lunch every now and again and have a pint. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I got to fit and have a pint. And I was useless.
Yeah, that's it.
The rest of the afternoon. Didn't do it again.
Yeah.
But just thought I gotta fit in. I'll have a pint with lunch.
That's it. I used to, first when I worked in finance, I was always amazed. It was great at the time, it's fun, but we'd go out for lunch on a Thursday, just no work would get done in the afternoon. And there's been a massive shift in consumers' attitudes towards wellness, productivity, what they're wanting to do. So consumer stuff, you're still going out for lunch on a Thursday, you're still catching up with your pals, and you still want that beer moment and occasion, but you just don't need the side effects of alcohol all of the time, which is where we see a phenomenal opportunity to keep beer relevant for that consumer base who doesn't want to suffer kind of the side effects of alcohol all of the time.
I wanted to wind back for a second. Creating, any consumer brand has a cost to it. You're launching a brand going into a pandemic. How did you fundraise for this?
And you mentioned talking about pivotal moments, that first funding round we did was a pivotal moment, because if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't be here right now. Working on the brand during COVID, we were able to do a lot until we needed funding. There was no way we could bootstrap this business, but we knew there were things that we wanted to do to put us in as good a place as possible to get funding, which for us meant we had to have the brand and we had to have the liquids that we could then take to people. We didn't necessarily have to be launched, but we had to have the brands and liquids to take to people. And we were fortunate, the brewery we were working with, because they'd lost a lot of production overnight through COVID, were happy to take a bit of a punt on us and give us like very good rates for doing the product testing and all the development. And the branding agency that we worked with to create the visual identity, the tone of voice, everything about Days, and certainly helped me build a pitch deck. We did a small cash, but predominantly equity deal with them. So we gave them equity. We promised them equity in the business once we raised some money. And that was a great thing to do because it meant that we got them on board. They just felt like partners right from the very start.
How have they remained? Can I ask?
Yeah. Their name is Onwards. They're a great creative agency. They have probably like just short of 2% of the business. So we paid them a little bit of cash at the very, very start, but predominantly they were incentivized through equity. And then we actually continued to work with them for a year where instead of cash, we paid them in equity. And that business has since actually invested cash into Days to buy more shares. So we have a very good relationship with them. But to your question on fundraising, because we had a beer and a brand, it meant that June 2020, so pre-launch, we were able to go to connections, high net worths, family offices and say like, look, this is us, this is our background. We have this vision for where we think alcohol-free beer can go. We have this brand that we believe is like disruptive, is going to bring new consumers to the category. And we have these delicious liquids. Now they haven't gone into full production yet. They were bottled at the brewery on like a pilot kit, but this is what it's going to taste like. And I'll always remember we had 8 conversations lined up. And the first conversation, which was an hour, 45 minutes into it, the couple, it's kind of a family office investment couple that we reached out to, told us said, please don't have any more conversations. We want to take your entire round. So that was kind of,
did they sample the
they sampled the beers. We were up in Edinburgh. We'd made sure we'd sent beers to a friend down in London and asked him to deliver cold beers. We'd made sure he had an ice pack and could deliver it. And we'd sent them the branding deck. So they were drinking the beers on the call and they really bought into the opportunity. First and foremost, it helped a lot that they as consumers were starting to live like a healthier lifestyle and were interested in the alcohol-free space. And I would say a lot of our investors over the last 4 or 5 years feel the pain point of being out and about, wanting a beer, but not wanting the side effects of alcohol. So that was our first round. We raised $250K in the summer of 2020. We then raised another $250K in March 2021, by which point we'd launched our website and had started getting early traction. So we had enough proof points that we could take back out to the market and say, look, we did this, we've proven this, we're now raising to go do this. So we've proven we can get 5-star reviews on our website. We're proving people order our beers and come back. We've proven that we can win listings in pubs, bars, and restaurants. Now we want to go do this, this, and this. So those first 2 rounds were really, really key. Since then, we've raised £6 million to date. We've kind of raised about £1 million every year over the last 4 years. And you guys came in our most recent rounds, which we closed right before Christmas.
It's an interesting strategy of raising annually. What's the thinking behind that as opposed to, for the last round, just going, all right, now we're going to raise a 5 mil or a 10 mil round?
Yeah. I think being honest, the funding environment's definitely changed in the last 4 years. And that's something we've had to be aware of in consumer. I think it's not as easy as it once was to raise huge amounts of money and grow at all costs. It's a different world. But I often think that's not a bad thing in terms of building a business, because it forces you to be really, really selective with what you're doing and delivering some really, really key milestones and not getting too distracted. So that's worked for us so far. I think at some point in the future, we will look to do a larger, probably institutional round, but we've got a really great supportive group of investors, including family offices with assets and interests in consumer around the world. I've got so many investors that I can reach out to, and within 10 minutes, I'll have a voice note giving their perspective, which is super helpful. So we've just been fortunate that that's worked for us to date, but in the future, who knows, we may look at doing a larger kind of institutional round at some point.
Let's talk about the future. Would you ever consider taking on board one of the big alcohol companies as an investor to help you shoot up distribution, or are you hoping to bypass and keep it fairly private?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And with my background, having been on the other side of it, having been the big beverage company that would look to acquire or invest in these, look, I think what my experience at AB InBev ZX Ventures showed me is what big beer companies are really, really good at, which is scale, which is taking something reasonably proven and just putting it everywhere, just pumping it into this machine. But there's a point at which it makes sense for a brand to do that, and it can't happen too early. And what I saw at AB InBev is what we were really, really bad at was organic innovation or looking after things that are too small to go into the big machine. Because when you're running these consumer startups, you have to be like, they're still so delicate, and you have to be so obsessed with the consumer. That's what matters, is the consumer, not aligning with different people internally and dealing with bureaucracy and stuff like that, which is why I've got a really clear picture of what we can do at Days outside of a big beverage machine. At some point, it may make sense, if we want Days to be the world's next great beer business, it may make sense to plug into a partner who can really help us offer that scale. But I don't think that point is right now. So we're more interested in kind of just delivering what we need to deliver right now. And then in the future, we will have those conversations as and when they happen.
I think that's a very politically correct answer for anyone who listens to it. But let's stick on the topic of the future for a second.
Sure.
So talk me through the next 12 to 24 months. You've just delivered this new version of your lager, new recipe.
Yeah.
It tastes great. What have you got next in store?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very relevant right now. We're really, really excited about this product. So the lager tastes great. We're running a campaign right now around kind of tastes unbelievable, because when we do taste tests with consumers, it is interchangeable between an alcoholic beer. They can't tell the difference. Beyond the taste, this lager also has a number of like functional benefits, which we believe help it differentiate from the rest of the category. It has 50% fewer calories, sugar, and carbs than the category average. So it is one of the healthiest beers on the market. So we're excited to put this product now into big retail distribution. So put it into UK grocery, but also the on-trade. So this partnership that we now have with the UK's biggest pub group gives us an enormous opportunity to drive volume, but also brand awareness in the on-trade. And I think that's where the business will probably look quite different in a year's time from the business that it has been for the last 4 years. Because the business has been an online beer business. It launched online, and online has been a big sales channel for us. But going forward, we're really excited to continue scaling in those more traditional beer channels, which just offer us phenomenal scale. So retail and pubs, bars, and restaurants, getting this liquid into as many retail outlets as we can over the next year or so, continuing to drive top of funnel brand awareness, which we do through creating engaging, interesting content that drives virality online, so that we can build that consumer awareness, but most importantly, they can buy it when they're in their local pub, when they're down at their local Tesco, which is something we haven't had so far.
How much of a factor does the number of products you have play into that? Because obviously you've got a great lager, and I think you've got two.
We've got a pale ale.
A pale ale as well. So have you thought about expansion of the product to tap into those other channels, and where's that going?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we think about innovation, there's kind of two things we think about. There's like product, which is liquid, but then there's also format. So packaging and how it shows up. On the product side, we've always been very, very focused on lager and pale ale. We haven't done too many weird and wonderful beer styles, although like the beer person in me wants to try and push it and do all these new and different things. I know we were talking about NPD. You want the stout. So if you think about like our fundamental problem over the last 2 years has just been, we just need to drive like sales in retail. And to do that, we need to be like super focused to the consumer about what Days is about, which is Days to date has been a really refreshing lager and pale ale brand. So that will continue to be the core of the business, will be lager and pale ale on the liquid side. But because we do have a very engaged online community, we are looking at testing a few different products with that online community to see what might work online, to use that insight to then pick the ones that work and then launch those in retail, because we do want to push the boundaries of this category and bring in new consumers and new occasions to the space. So we are looking at some things that are quite different to traditional beer. And we launched a tropical IPA last November, which sold out very quickly online. We're looking at fruit beer as something that we might launch this summer, particularly going for that like lunchtime occasion. So the thinking being launch what we would call like bullets online.
Or session beers.
Or session beers. And we brought a lot more product know-how in-house from learning how to create this, which means we can spin up a new beer really, really quickly. but that's part of the challenge, because then we'd end up doing lots of weird and wonderful things. So it's being really clear about what we're doing. So we'll test a few bullets, we call them, online before they become like cannons, before they become these like big things that we take into retail. So that's on like the liquid side. On the format side, we have a 330 ml can, a 330 ml bottle. We do also have a 568 ml bottle, which we use for the on-trade. So that's a pint bottle. We know that consumers want a pint of alcohol-free beer in pubs and bars, but to date, draft hasn't been the optimal solution to deliver that, because it requires a pub or bar to take off a performing alcohol line. And there are a number of like product concerns with draft. Alcohol-free doesn't have any alcohol in it, so it doesn't clean the lines, and the product is much more exposed to spoilage or infection or things like that. So we haven't done draft yet. Our solution for offering a pint in the on-trade has been the packaged pint, which is actually what Diageo have done with Guinness. That said, draft maybe is something that kind of we're looking at the moment, because of the relationship we now have with the UK's largest pub group, is something that we might pilot at some point. So both looking at like liquid and formats, but always trying to be like super, super focused, which is driving more distribution points for our core, because that is how we're going to bring more people to the space, by being available in retail.
I've actually finished the can.
There you go. Have you got another? I sent you a few, didn't I?
You did. I only put one in the fridge though, so I was just thinking that larger bottle version might have.
There you go. Yeah.
Useful.
There you go.
On that though, you say it's much healthier.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered sponsoring a five-a-side football team?
Yeah.
You and Dunks play.
Yeah. I mean, we take a load down every Monday. We take a load down to the football that we played. We've done a lot of we've had a lot of success in that healthy like lifestyle sport activation space. So one thing we've done is a lot of sampling at the end of cycling events or trail running events or that kind of thing. So there was a Brad Maverick, fantastic like trail running events platform we would stand at the end of all their finish lines and give everyone an alcohol-free beer when they finished the event, which for us shows like how relevant that occasion is, because someone's finished a 10K run through the hills, whatever it might be. At the end of it, they want something like light and refreshing and cold that is celebratory, but they don't want alcohol in it. So an alcohol-free beer makes like perfect sense in that occasion. We're doing a load of stuff around the Hackney Half this weekend. We're working with a business called Friday Night Lights, who their tagline is London's healthiest night out, or the healthiest night out. But it's basically a run club that meets, and they have runners with like backpacks of speakers playing loud music, and everyone's on a run around London, but like socializing, having fun. At the end of that run, they'll like crack open a cold days. So we definitely have like enjoyed a lot of success in that health wellness space. That is like what our consumers do. Our consumers looking to live a healthier lifestyle. They're still social.
It's beer for doing.
Beer for doing it. Exactly.
That sticks. It really does.
Yeah.
So a few questions. We painted a pretty rosy picture with the exception of that lonely flight. But what have been some of the challenges that you've faced along the way? Because I'm sure there's been quite a few.
Yeah, there's been loads. And one thing I'm always keen going to speak to like prospective founders or anyone really. Like I think part of it is if you look at like our Instagram channel as an example, or our social media, everything looks like it's like fun and working and everything's going great all the time. But that's not the way a startup works. Like there's tons of challenges, tons of assumptions that we had of the business that haven't been right. That means that we constantly have to be putting out fires or iterating or doing different things. So yeah, we've had a number of challenges within the business, from maybe bets we've made in a specific sales channel that haven't worked out, to product. And I think we now have fantastic lager. I think for a while I think when we launched, we had great tasting beer in a category that was very, very early. What we realized is a lot of players came into the category, and the overall expectation of what an alcohol-free beer should taste like increased substantially. And I would say like when Guinness 0.0 launched, that really raised the bar for what alcohol-free beer should be in the UK. So we had to look at our product then. And if we're honest, we're like, this was good. It got us to here. But if we're going to build the world's next great beer business, we need to relook at our product, which is why we redeveloped everything for this new lager. That's a year in development to work on the new beer. It's not just like a pretty brand or a good tasting beer. Like I actually believe what drives success is actually the team's ability to get around obstacles, to see through opportunities, and like be scrappy and be like agile. That's what drives success in a startup.
I want to introduce a quick fire round.
Yep.
First one. What's been the most surprising consumer feedback you've had?
When we launched the business, we were convinced that our consumer would all be like younger consumers who were drinking less alcohol, really, really active lifestyles, which is the majority of our consumer base. But we have an older consumer that comes through our D2C platform who maybe like 60, 70 plus that is really, really into alcohol-free beer. And that really surprised me because I didn't have that as a target segment at all. And that consumer is really, really interested in longevity, but they also have a ritual every night of having a gin and tonic, a glass of wine or a beer or whatever it might be, which is why this product plays really well for them. But that consumer segment has really surprised me that they've become a part of the brand.
What's the most influential book you've read?
That's a good question. I'm reading a book right now, actually, which someone gave to me called The Obstacle is the Way. And I think it's really interesting reading that now when you're in a startup and actually like seeing all the problems and all the challenges. Because I think before you do a startup, you only see the good things. And I'm a natural optimist. So you only see the potential market size, the opportunity. But as I said, I believe a lot of like in a startup is reacting to different challenges and overcoming them. So there's a lot that I'm reading in that right now that I'm trying to think how I can like use that with the team and also use that with like myself, thinking about how we continue to grow. So I definitely recommend that to any founder or entrepreneur. I'm halfway through it, but I'm really enjoying it.
Best aspect of your co-founder?
Oh, Dunks is brilliant. Best, I'm really, really lucky. I have like an excellent co-founder who I trust implicitly. I've always gone really, really well with. Not just that he is smart and capable and a good decision maker, but I trust his values and everything and trust him implicitly to make decisions. We are quite different and I think we complement each other quite well. Duncan is like incredibly like logical, rational, data driven, and like really, really good with process. And I would say one of my gaps is I'm not great with process. And I think I get excited about things like here's the opportunity, and Dunks is really good at like that process and structure. And I think it's interesting. I always find that the business is when one of us is like really concerned about something, where one of us is like, God, is this going to work? The other is like, yeah, of course, this is going to work. And I think we bounce off really, really well off each other. So yeah, I wouldn't be here. No way without Dunks. And that was a huge moment is when he quit his job and decided to like come on board. That was like massive. So yeah, I'm really, really lucky.
Last one on that front. Where will Days Brewing be in 5 years?
Yeah, good question. We really believe that in the opportunity here to build like a long-term brand that keeps beer relevant for a modern consumer. Like we want beer to be this thing that continues bringing people together, that continues driving like this amazing like cheers sociability. And we want Days to be the brand that does that and champions that continues offering that amazing beer occasion, but celebrates people leading healthier lifestyles. So a household name, certainly in like all pubs, bars, grocery stores in the UK with a good, hopefully fast growing international presence.
Thank you for that. Well, look, it's been absolutely a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I hope it's been fun. We've jumped around a lot of stuff there, but I hope it's been helpful.
Yeah, I think it has. More importantly, people can search for Days Brewing, but if they want to find out more about the business or if they want to find the products, where should they go? What should they do? How should they keep in touch?
Yeah, so you can follow along the journey across all our social handles, and you can buy beer direct from us on daysbrewing.com. But better yet, next time you're doing your shop at Waitrose, Sainsbury's, Tesco, Ocado, put us in your basket, give us a go, or over in your favorite local pub or restaurant and give us a try.
Well, I'm going to put your health claims to the test. I'm going to try and do a run after this.
There you go. Great.
And see how that goes.
Enjoy it. That's it. Beer at lunch and then a run. That's it. That's beer for doing.
I do hope that maybe in 12 months we can revisit this. We can see how
we'd love to.
Going, product development, distribution.
For sure.
But until then, have a lovely rest of your day, and I'm going to enjoy the other 3 later in the week.
Enjoy. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, that's it for this episode of Angel Insights, and we do hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. If you did like the episode, we ask that you like, subscribe, and share it. And we hope you'll tune in for the next one. Until then, you can find out more about what we're doing over at www.syndicateroom.com. All the best for now. Bye.